Another person who's come to regret signing up to a no-win, no-fee holiday sickness claim is Josh Clayton from Cheshire. Josh used to work as cabin crew, and although he's hung up his wings, he still has the travel bug.
I feel travel's really important to me because it gets me the opportunity to obviously see new places, meet new people.
In June 2014, Josh booked a last-minute week-long all-inclusive break to Sharm el-Sheikh in Egypt with a friend, paying around £350 at a 4-star resort. But right from the off, Josh says that first impressions of the hotel were pretty disappointing.
The room wasn't really clean, and even the towels looked quite grubby. So yeah, I wasn't really happy overall with obviously my first impressions of a 4-star hotel.
Josh tried to put his disappointment to one side and enjoy the holiday. So he ventured down to the buffet restaurant to take advantage of the all-inclusive package.
I was quite excited to obviously try out the Mexican and the Italian the next day, and I thought, you know, we could have a different theme every night for the 7 days.
But shortly after eating at the Lebanese-themed buffet at the resort, he was violently sick.
First started feeling ill literally the next day. As the day progressed, it did get worse. Obviously, I was kind of like feeling very nauseous, dizzy, and I suffered all the symptoms that you would expect from food poisoning.
Josh says that he managed to drag himself to the local pharmacy, where he was given antibiotics to stop the vomiting and diarrhoea.
It kind of really spoiled it for me and took the shine off the whole holiday. It wasn't great because I was just in my room, in a room that I felt wasn't even that clean. I just felt like I was trapped until I could go home.
When he returned to the UK, he investigated making a holiday sickness claim. And after coming across a company called Opes Law on a comparison website, he instructed them to make a claim on his behalf.
The fact that it was no win, no fee is quite endearing because you think, well, do you know what? I'll put it in. If I get something out of it, great. If I don't, it's no win, no fee. So with that in mind, I just went ahead with it, as most people would have done.
Josh says that while the firm was attentive and constantly asked for additional information, the claim dragged on for a number of years.
So having that we travelled to Egypt in June 2014, when it got to early 2018, I kind of felt like the case had kind of been dropped. And with it being no win, no fee, I just thought it was over and done with.
Then, in March 2018, Josh received an email from Opes Law telling him that, due to restructuring, his case had been taken over by a different firm, Inaya Solicitors.
I was really baffled the fact that it had been passed to a different solicitor without my knowledge or consent.
Unhappy about being transferred to a new legal firm without his knowledge, he told the new company he'd had enough and didn't want to pursue the case. But he says he was told if he dropped it, the resort solicitors would pursue him for their costs, almost £5,000. So Josh felt he had no option but to continue with his claim.
I just felt angry. I felt like I was backed into a corner, so I kind of felt like, you know what, I'm going to have to just go with this and stay with this solicitor and see what happens, because I was generally sick on holiday. So I kind of felt like I had good grounds to just carry it on.
2 months later, he was informed by his solicitors that if he agreed to sign a document officially dropping the case for good, he would no longer be liable for the resort's legal fees. And while this also meant he'd get no payout, he was relieved that it was all done and dusted. But it came with a catch. His solicitors said he would be billed for £545 for the costs that they had incurred.
I felt really misled in this process because I signed up to no win, no fee. So to me, that means if you don't win the case, which I didn't, either party didn't, I shouldn't have had to foot any bill.
But worried about incurring further charges, he felt he had little other choice than to pay up.
I felt like I had to pay it because, you know, I didn't want to incur anything that goes against my name. And with it being a solicitor's firm, I just felt like, you know, I had to pay it.
Well, the first firm of solicitors Josh had been dealing with, Opes Law, went bust in May 2018. But the second, Inaya Solicitors, has told us that he withdrew his case against its advice, saying the medical evidence supported his claim. It says if he'd let it go to trial and lost, he wouldn't have been liable for any costs because he was covered by a specialist form of legal protection. As it is, the company says what he's ended up paying isn't a fee, but the expenses it ran up pursuing his case. Personal injury lawyer Andrew Twembley says that it's essential to understand the nature of any contract before signing on the dotted line.
You need to read the agreement properly and decide what your obligations and liabilities are on day one. And if you don't understand the agreement, ask. A no-win, no-fee agreement doesn't mean you don't pay. It means if you do win, you pay a proportion of the damages. If you tell lies, exaggerate, or fail to cooperate with the lawyer, you can expect a bill. So it's not really a pitfall, it's just a contractual obligation.
And he says that with so many fraudulent holiday sickness claims, courts now expect strong evidence to prove a case.
You really need to show that you've reported it to the hotel, you reported it to the agent on site, you've been to the doctors or been to the chemist locally, you've been to the doctor when you came back. The more evidence, genuine evidence you can bring, the more likely it is you'll successfully settle or succeed in the claim at trial.
And if you do find yourself in a situation where you think you've been unfairly charged by a solicitor, then there are options.
You're always able to challenge the fees requested by a solicitor. You can request regular updates on the charges, and at the end, you can go through the complaints procedure of the company to challenge that fee.
And if all that fails, you can contact the legal ombudsman or the Solicitors Regulation Authority for advice. Despite being out of pocket, the experience hasn't deterred Josh from going off on his travels.
I really regret putting in the claim. It's something that I don't think I'd do in a hurry. But for me personally, it won't put me off. I love travelling.
Still to come on Rip Off Britain, at our pop-up shop in Manchester, we hear about the fake flight websites that you say are taking off with your cash.
To think that somebody could get away with this actually scares me more than the fact that I've lost my money.
Our travel expert, Simon Calder, is full of the secrets that will save you money on your travels.
Sumimasen!
With tips on everything from how to avoid the crowds to the best way to dodge those tourist traps.
I'm here all week.
This time, we're staying in the UK to uncover the hidden secrets of a visit to Liverpool. After centuries as one of the world's leading ports, Liverpool was transformed in the 1960s into the ultimate pop music mecca. Today, its rich history makes it a superb city break destination. There's so much to enjoy above ground, but there's also a remarkable amount going on beneath the surface.
Start at the spot where Liverpool was born as a great world port, at the Liverpool One shopping centre, or rather beneath the shopping centre.
As the site was cleared for construction of the retail complex, archaeologists were allowed to rummage. They peeled back the layers of civilization to discover that the city's original closed wet dock was in remarkably good shape. The river gate locked in the water, which meant that the ships were able to remain at a constant level in the dock.
This innovative feat of engineering changed the world. Ships could unload and load in a day, regardless of the tides, so commerce accelerated. You can join a tour of the original old dock 3 days a week. Industrial archaeology at its best.
In the 19th century, the population of Liverpool was boosted by a large influx of Irish immigrants. For many years, however, this predominantly Catholic community lacked its own cathedral. Finally, in the 1930s, building started, with architect Edwin Lutyens dreaming of a dome to dwarf St. Peter's in Rome. But building was interrupted by the Second World War, with only the crypt complete.
By the time peace finally arrived, though, times had changed and Lutyens' plans were abandoned. but his crypt was used as the foundation for the modern wonder that is the Metropolitan Cathedral of Christ the King.
Known affectionately locally as Paddy's Wigwam. Lutyens' vast crypt is still open to the public, and best of all, tours of it are free, although a donation of £3 per person is suggested. Near the seafront is an underground attraction dating from the Second World War. During hostilities, Liverpool occupied a key location, facing the area of the Atlantic known as the Western Approaches. In the basement of an office block, a top-secret command centre was set up to coordinate operations.
In the past, the only way you could access this subterranean complex was by signing the Official Secrets Act. But now it's open to visitors to explore freely.
And the highlight is the operations room, which has remained untouched since the doors were closed on the 15th of August 1945. Entry is £13.50 for adults, £8 for children. But perhaps the most famous subterranean hotspot in the city, and another place which has free entry Monday to Thursdays before noon, is the Cavern Club on Matthew Street, where the Beatles launched their musical career.
In the 1970s, the basement venue was filled in for a building project which never actually happened. And in 1984, the Cavern Club was lovingly reconstructed so that Beatles fans from around the world could visit the place where John, Paul, George and Ringo became the Fab Four. It's open 7 days a week. Or is that 8?
Every year we set up our Rip-Off Britain pop-up shop in Manchester, and we love it because we bring with us our crack team of experts, and they're on hand to tackle all your consumer problems. Holidays are always a big part of the mix, but this time around we noticed a real spike in tales of bogus travel companies and the huge sums of money that you've lost by falling for all sorts of internet scams. Well, here are some of the most shocking, along with plenty of advice to help you stay safe when you're booking online. We're back at Manchester's Trafford Centre.
My mum will be so jealous I've met you.
Hearing about all your problems.
Clearly you've had an absolutely horrible time.
And one thing that's driving you round the bend this year again is the highs and lows of travelling.
If you had known that was the extent of the building, you wouldn't have gone there, would you? When it comes to your hard-earned and well-deserved holidays, it is so important that everything goes well.
Absolutely, but sadly for some of you, that lovely idea of a terrific, relaxed holiday turns into a terrible nightmare.
And that's where we come in, because we've got a team of experts here ready to listen and help if they can.
Today, we're going to hear about some brazen holiday scams.
I'd written it off. I'd assumed that we wouldn't get it back.
This is really odd.
And I think that really is totally unacceptable.
Unlike the rest of us, it would seem the fraudsters never take a break. Simone Lazarus has come to see travel expert Simon Calder to find out if he can help after she was taken in by a very plausible cheap flights website.
Thank you for coming to see us.
That's okay.
Can you tell us this story?
Simone and her family needed to fly from London to Lagos in Nigeria for a family wedding, something they were all really looking forward to.
We've recently lost my father-in-law, so it was a big deal that my husband would be there and give his sister away.
The family were looking to travel in August, peak holiday season.
So we were looking around online for a good deal. I found a company, I checked their ABTA and IATA status, and I called them up and inquired about tickets. And they gave me reference numbers.
The criminals had cloned the impressive website of a legitimate company that was a member of IATA and ATOL, just changing the phone number. Even more reassuringly, it sent her the link to the Virgin Airways customer portal, where she saw her reservation.
But they told me that they could only secure the flights if I paid by bank transfer. When I saw our names come up listed and our dates of birth, for me that was our flights booked and done. So for me that was my guarantee.
Simone paid £2,500 by bank transfer for the family's flights.
I was patting myself on the back for a couple of weeks because I thought I'd had a great deal.
Then a week before the trip, She went online, punched in the reference numbers, and nothing came up.
So at that point, I kind of smelt a rat. I made a phone call and those flights were no longer there.
It became clear that she had been the victim of a sophisticated scam.
So they saved the flights initially, we paid them, and then they didn't pay the money onto the airline. So we're left high and dry without any flights.
So Simone tried ringing the company, but the number was dead. The trip was off, and her £2,500 lost with it.
It was a big occasion, and we couldn't go. We just didn't have any more funds to pay.
Oh, gosh. Well, I can imagine that you're very angry, understandably, and you want your money back, basically.
To think that somebody could get away with this actually scares me more than the fact that I've lost my money.
What Simone simply can't understand is why, with the bank transactions traceable, more hasn't been done to bring the fraudsters to justice.
I had the account holder's name and the sort code and account number, but the technology exists to find out who had set up the account.
Simone, I absolutely agree that, yes, if the authorities were prepared to get involved, they could get really forensic. There is, as you've detected, no great will to do that, even though huge amounts of money are involved.
For Simon, the most important thing to take away from Simone's experience is always pay for your holiday on a credit card.
Paying with credit card is a really good idea. It means that if there's any problem with whatever it is you're buying, then you just go straight to the credit card company and say, hey, you've got to sort this out for me, which in the case of a dodgy travel agent means a full refund.
Meanwhile, over in our gripe corner, there's been one subject on everyone's mind.
What really annoys me is airport parking. It's extortionate. It's £3 for like 5 minutes.
It's really annoying when we go on holiday and my mummy has to pay money for the parking.
And I think it's disgraceful.
And our next visitors have their own travel gripe. Julia's with dispute resolution expert Martin James, hoping to lend a hand to two very unhappy travellers. Amanda and Stuart Percival say that they got tricked into paying far more than they should have done for a US visa waiver.
Martin, this is Amanda and Stuart, and they're in here with a sorry saga to do with Stuart's application for a visa waiver for a trip to America.
Stuart went online to renew the visa waiver he needed to travel to the USA, and it's known as the Electronic System for Travel Authorization, or ESTA. The rest of the family already had theirs, but as his had expired, Stuart filled in his details and paid the $14 ESTA fee.
And then a few days later, Amanda, my wife, said, there's a charge come through from a company for $99. What's that for? And I said, well, the only thing that makes sense is the visa waiver, which was clearly $14. And then they put on an $85 handling charge for me filling out essentially the normal ESTA visa online.
Doesn't sound right, does it?
Well, you know, I'd love to say that this was illegal, but unfortunately we hear loads of complaints about this.
Stuart had inadvertently gone onto a third-party website. It looked like the official ESTA site and came up first when he searched online, but in fact it had no connection whatsoever to the US authorities.
And I thought, but how have we been hoodwinked, basically? So I went into this website and I put in my details as though I were applying for an ESTA. And it was only when you get to the very last payment page and it says in huge letters that there's a $14 fee. And then underneath in tiny letters it says we could add an additional $85 if your application is successfully accepted and processed.
Have you done anything else to kind of sort this out in terms of trying to get your money back?
I have been in touch with Trading Standards, I've been in touch with the credit card company, I've been in touch with filling in a form online to notify the US authorities. I've done as much as I can do.
That's a huge amount.
Yes. She's a doughty fighter.
Absolutely, and we love fighters on the programme. But this is a tricky one because these companies operate in a legal grey area where they are technically providing a service, even though it's rubbish and unnecessary. So I think publicising this is really, really, really important because would you have known at first glance that actually this was a site that you didn't need to use?
No, and my regret is that I'd actually applied for these before, having worked for a US company, and I noticed no difference.
When we double-checked things with the United States Customs and Border Protection Agency, it confirmed that there is only one official ESTA website, and a US visitor visa costs just $14. And the agency was keen to make it clear that third-party companies which charge fees to assist travellers with submitting ESTA applications are not operating on behalf of the US government. So the moral of this story is look before you click. Make sure you're on the genuine ESTA site. But for the Percivals, their story did at least have a happy ending.
Well, you are actually off tomorrow, I gather.
We are.
On this long-awaited visit to America. We'll have a fabulous time.
Thank you.
Rip Off Britain wouldn't be here without your stories, and we've got plenty of ways that you can get in touch. Send us an email to ripoffbritain@bbc.co.uk. Or write to us at Rip Off Britain, BBC Dock House, Media City UK, Salford, M50 2LH. But please don't ever send any original documents. And even if you haven't got a story you'd like us to investigate, you can still join in the conversation on our Facebook page. Just search BBC Rip Off Britain.
Well, sadly, I'm afraid that's where we have to leave you for today. But, if there's one piece of advice to have come out of today's stories that's really worth remembering, it's be sceptical. Certainly when it comes to booking a villa, for instance, make absolutely certain that the company with whom you're dealing is absolutely genuine before you hand over any of your money.
And don't forget that whatever part of your trip you're booking, you'll have extra protection if you pay by credit card. Really, do think twice before you agree to simply transfer money to somebody you don't know.
How many times have we said that on the programme? Book carefully, so the advice is travel wisely, but most importantly, enjoy every single moment of it. The odd upset, including some of those to your stomach, are all part of the adventure of travel. And we very much hope that you can steer clear of the ones that aren't. For now, though, thank you very much for your company, and from all of